I get the following question. Why do you protect your kids from being exposed? Isn't it better they'll be exposed? That's what they're going to be exposed to anyways.
Wherever you get your podcasts from, or our own website, prismoftorah.com. This is the Prism of Torah with Rabbi Asaf Aaron Prisman.
Shalom Avracha. In this week's Parsha, Parshas Ki Savo, as we are in the heat of Chodesh Elul leading up to the Heilige Rosh Hashanah, I want to share with you a concept that screams out in this Parsha, and it's something that can really help us get into the rhythm of this special, important time of the Yomim Noraim. We know the beginning of the Parsha talks about the mitzvah of bikurim, where a person takes the first fruit from any Shiva Saminim tree that he has and brings it to the Kohen. As it says, you take from the first produce of the land that Hashem gave you. And the question begs itself, wouldn't you think that it makes more sense that we look at all the fruits, instead of taking the first pomegranate that came out, we wait to look at all the pomegranates and we take the best quality one and give it as an offering to Hashem? Wouldn't that make more sense? And if you look at it from a more broader perspective, it's not only the mitzvah that's brought down in our parsha of mitzvahs of bikurim, but it's also relevant to many other mitzvahs, such as the first shearing of the wool, reishis agez, also the first of the dough, the firstborn. So you see many things, it's the mitzvah, the gedder of the mitzvah is to give the first, and not necessarily the top quality. We all know the famous idea that quality is more important than quantity. You would think also quality is more important than the first. But I think we're going to see that there is a prina mesuyemes, a certain perspective, that the first of something is extremely critical and sensitive. And this we can see based on the pasuk in Koheles that we know Shlomo HaMelech wrote, Chacham mikol adam. It says, Tov acharis davar mirishisoy, which means the ending is good because of the beginning. There's two ways of learning this pasuk. Rashi brings both. The one I'm trying to discuss is the one where Rashi says that you know why the ending is good? It's because it's rooted in the beginning. When the beginning is good, then the ending will also be good. Meaning when the ending is going well, it's all thanks to the root of the beginning. And misvara, we can see how that's true. When a person builds a building, the most sensitive part of the building is the infrastructure, the foundation. Any minor mistake over there is going to grow exponentially as you go higher up in the building. Whereas if you have a little mistake higher up in the building, it's not the end of the world. And we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu models the world in the same way, also in the physical and also in the spiritual, also in the ruchani. And hence, it's imperative that when we are growing, when we're starting a mitzvah, that we have to start it on the right foot, in a perfect way, in a perfect atmosphere, in a spiritual, holy, surrounding environment. This concept, I think, is so tangible to so many of us. You just look around, you see when a kid grows up, how important it is to protect him from even a minor setting, a minor setback that can affect him. Even more so, when a baby is in a mother's womb, as it's being developed, those 9 months are extremely critical. It's so important that the mother is in a good state, both physically and emotionally, because any little movement, anything that throws her off will have a major effect on the baby, especially as he grows up. And when lo aleinu, as the kid grows up, a person sees issues, one of the first things the doctors and the specialists ask is, was it a normal pregnancy? Did you go through something serious during your pregnancy? And that is because what we're saying over here, that the beginning of anything is so critical. Now and then, I get the following question from people. Why do you protect your kids from being exposed to certain things? Isn't it better they'll be exposed? That's what they're going to be exposed to anyways. this is the generation we live in? And I answer them with a very simple idea. When you plant a seed for a tree to grow, at the beginning, you can't just plant it in an open area where the winds will uproot it in a second, but you have to protect it. You put it in a little area where it's protected from the wind, and as it gets more rooted, then you can already put it outside in the real world and it is able to hold itself. That's because the beginning is extra critical, extra sensitive. The Netziv says in last week's Parsha, Parshas Ki Savo, it says that when a person builds a new house, Ki tivnei bayis chadash, then you should do the mitzvah of building a ma'akeh so people won't fall from your roof. And the question begs itself, he says, what does this have to do with the new house? Any house you're moving into, any house you have, even if it's not new, if you didn't do the mitzvah yet, then you should perform the mitzvah and build a banister so no one falls off from there. You have to build a ma'akeh. And he answers that when you go to a new house, make sure the first thing you do is a mitzvah. So build the ma'akeh straight away so no one will fall. You see the importance again of as you do something, the first thing should be a mitzvah. Why? You want to start everything off, the process of living in a new place, in a positive, in a spiritual, you want to create a spiritual atmosphere. The same can be explained to why in Hanukkah it was so important to have a miracle to ensure that we have pure oil that's not tameh. Because really someone can ask, and everyone asks the following question, who cares if you have impure oil? How do we know that under certain circumstances, such as when most of the people are impure, then tumahutra b'tzibu, you're allowed to use an oil to light the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash that's impure. But no, the Chashmonaim said, no, we have to find pure oil. It's so important. HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed to them, and the proof to that is that he was willing to do a miracle. And we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu's last resort is to do miracles, open miracles against nature. And here was a huge miracle. That oil for one day lasted for another 7 days, for 8 days. And the answer is, it was also the beginning. It was reinstituting the Beis HaMikdash. The first time we're lighting the menorah, it has to be perfect. Because any little thing that's not perfect can have a major effect later on. The Gemara in Bava Metzia, Pehei Amud Beis, talks about the Heilige Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia realized that Torah was totally being forgotten by everyone. And to save the day, and to save everyone, he went around from city to city teaching Torah. He took all these bachurim from city to city and he taught everyone. But before he did that, he went out of his way, he was matriach himself, to go to plant pishtan, flax. He took that, he created strings out of it to create a net, to capture the deers, to take the skin of the deers, and on top of that write the Chamishechim Torah, and through that he was teaching. Why did he go through so much trouble? Because he wanted everything to be perfect. He knew that he would do it in a perfect way, with all his heart, with proper kavanas, and he didn't want anyone else to do this job. Because he realizes that the beginning, especially here, the re-beginning of teaching Torah after it was lost, has to be done in a perfect way. The Yerushalmi in Chagiga blames Elisha ben Avuya's tragic going off the derech, from the derech of Hashem, the path of Torah, to an incident that occurred mamish at the beginning of his life during his bris. The big Talmidei Chachamim of Yerushalayim came to the bris and they were discussing Torah with great intensity. As a result, the fire came down mishamayim and surrounded them. When Elisha's father saw this, he said and announced, "Wow, I want to devote my son to Torah. I want him also to be able to do these wonders and create fire, etc." This was obviously a messed up motivation. It was impure. And this ended up having the ripple effect, without getting into details, that his son went off the derech. Because he started his life with an impure intention. Hence you see over and over again, there's many more examples in Chazal, that the beginning is so imperative that it is done in a proper and pure manner. And hence, to answer our question, yes, there are many mitzvahs that we do them with an emphasis on the beginning. The first, we want to start off always with the mitzvah, the firstborn, the first shearing of the wool, and in our case, the first fruit, not necessarily the top quality, the first, because we want to start the process with kedusha, with tahara. How much is this fitting for the days we are within right now? We're in Elul, we're soon starting the year with Rosh Hashanah and Aseres Yemei Tshuva, and that beginning is imperative to be done in the best way. We know the halacha says that mikar adin, a person can eat bread that was made by a goy. Of course, if the ingredients are kosher, it's called pas akum, pas palter. But some, in certain scenarios, some take upon themselves not to have that. The halacha is brought down that even if you're a person that you do eat bread that was made by a goy, but yet still, on the 10 days of repentance, Aseres Yemei Tshuva, you should make the extra effort to refrain from it. The question begs itself, it sounds a bit fake. What's going on? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like when someone's fake. What, you're pretending that type of person, but you're not. You know that right after the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, you're going to go back to eating this type of bread. And the answer is, it's not being fake. It's trying to start off the year on the right foot, to ensure that everything is 100% pure. Like a baby that's in the mother's womb, we want all the conditions to be as perfect as possible. I would like to end off with a story that I've mentioned at least one time before, but I definitely connected the story from a different perspective than what I will do right now in Mitzvah Hashem. And that is, once upon a time, there was a certain neighborhood. In that neighborhood, everyone saw a person coming up to look at a house that was for sale. They saw him taking all kinds of weird measurements of the garden. They saw he had a smile from ear to ear, and he closed on the deal and he bought the house. 2 days later, he moves in, and after he puts all the boxes in the house, you see him planting something outside. He really invested in this. Every day he was measuring the amount of water that he gave to the plant. He put some nutrients to the plant, fertilizer, whatever it was, day after day after day, 3 times a day. Everyone's already starting to laugh at him. They don't see anything. It all looks the same, year after year. And then after a couple of years, I don't remember the exact number, one of his neighbors, an old neighbor, not this new neighbor that just moved in, the old neighbor says, listen, I'm going away for 2 weeks to the States. Can you do me a favor and just keep an eye on my place to make sure everything's okay? He says, fine. This person that flew for 2 weeks to the States, he comes back from the airport, drives up to his driveway, and it was very difficult for him to find his way because he couldn't even recognize the street. The coloring was distorted. Suddenly it seemed like it was way more shady than usual. But as he gets into his driveway, he cannot believe what he sees coming out of the garden of that next door new neighbor. He sees this huge bamboo tree, and he's amazed. Right next to the tree in the other driveway is his new neighbor with a smile from ear to ear. He opens the door of the car and he asks his new neighbor, what is this? He goes, this is a Chinese bamboo tree. It takes a couple of good years before you see anything because it invests in its foundation, in its roots. And after it grows for 2 years or 3 years, whatever it is, under the ground, within 2 weeks, it shoots up to 10 meters. And I think that is the best parable, mashal, to what to the concept we're trying to portray. And that is, a person has to invest in the foundation, in the beginning. And that's why it's so important to start in a positive way, to start with a mitzvah. The first is critical. I know this very big person, I don't want to mention his name, that all his Talmidim, when they move, he has no extra time, of course, this holy person, but it is so important for him that when his Talmidim, his students, move to a new house, that he comes there first. Why? Because he wants to look at every room and say something good about each room. Wow, this is amazing here, this is amazing here. And when you do that, he says, you have an effect on the room. When you look at everything from an Ayin Tovah perspective, that has a positive effect. Chas v'shalom, if it's someone else that either is jealous or something like that and says things and thinks things that are negative, it will have a negative effect on that place. We know Chazal tell us many times that the koach of a person, but especially a yid in his dibul, even in his thoughts, is huge. Yiratzon that we take this idea of the beginning being so important, as we enter the Yomim Noraim and we try to do cheshbon nefesh, how we can at least start the year in the best way possible, especially from a spiritual perspective. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Prism of Torah. Visit our website, prismoftorah.com, where you'll find a full archive of hundreds of past Divrei Torah. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. Sponsorship opportunities are available for all of our episodes. Thank you, Yomim Noraim, for your recording equipment. Produced by Eli Podcast Productions.